virtual tour is of the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. Now, we already had a memorial for the Vietnam War. We had one for the Korean War. Those were built before the memorial to World War II. So the idea actually came about in 1987, but yet it didn't get finished and dedicated till 2004. And it kind of got to the point where people were like, if you don't get this memorial built, those veterans aren't even going to be alive to see their memorial. And I think at the time that it was built, they were estimating there was about 1,000 World War II veterans dying every single day. So probably today it's in the lower hundreds. But anyway, one of the biggest proponents, pushers to get this memorial done was Senator Bob Dole, because he was a veteran of World War II. So he became the chairperson on the committee of getting the memorial completed. And he served in World War II. He won a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star, and he was injured terribly. You probably noticed that he didn't have use of his hand, so he couldn't use that hand to shake hands. And he was, when he was injured, he was like in the hospital for 2 years. So it was pretty serious injury. But one of the neat things is that he goes to the memorial on Saturdays and greets the people. Now, I think within the last year or two, he may have stopped doing that, but he is in his 90s. So he would be in his wheelchair and he would be there to take photos and welcome people to the World War II Memorial. Kind of a neat thing. I never got to see him there. A lot of my friends have and have pictures with him. I always hoped that I would run into him so I could get a picture, because I think my parents would get a kick out of that since he's a fellow Kansan. But anyway, so the winner of this design competition, because every memorial has a design competition, was a man named Frederick St Florian. And he was I think he taught architecture at a university in Rhode Island. But he was born in Austria in 1932, I think it was. So he came to America in the 60s. So I imagine, he actually had kind of a front row seat to World War II if he was a child in Austria during that time. Anyway, so the design features of this memorial, it's shaped in a circular fashion, and you'll see 56 pillars and 2 semicircles meeting each other. The 56 pillars represent the states and the territory in our union at the time of World War II. And in the centerpiece is the gold wall called the Freedom Wall of gold stars, and there's 4,048 stars on that wall, and each star represents 100 lives lost. Now, a gold star, there's meaning behind that. So if you had a son or a husband serving in the military, you would probably have you might put a blue star in your window. But if you lost that person, you would have a gold star in your window. So you might be walking down your neighborhood street and you might see a gold star in somebody's window. You might even see 2 gold stars in their window. Then you know that that person lost somebody. So like I said, the Freedom Wall has 4,048 stars on it, each star indicating 100 lives lost, which means we lost over 400,000 American servicemen to World War II. And looking at World War II worldwide, there's an estimate that maybe 60 to 70 million lives were lost. And that's including all the military, the Holocaust victims, Japanese war crime victims, innocent civilians. So that's a lot of lives that we lost. This war was fought on 6 continents. So massive destruction that it caused. Another feature of the memorial is you can find some graffiti on it. Now, can you imagine somebody graffitiing the memorial? But it's in 2 places and it's permanent. It's there for good. It's engraved. And what it is Kilroy was here. So you'll have to search for that. I always tell my groups, okay, you got to go find it, but now they Google it and that's cheating. Takes all the fun out of it. But since you guys have been so good, I'm going to just tell you where it is. So it's behind the Delaware and the Pennsylvania pillars. So you have to go on the outside of the memorial and walk around. You'll see a little gold gate and it's back in there. So who was Kilroy and why? What is this all about? Well, Kilroy was a rivet inspector that was inspecting the rivets on the ships that were being built. And he got paid per rivet. So I think he felt like maybe he was getting cheated out of some of his rivets. So he started putting Kilroy was here next to the rivets he inspected. And so these guys on ships all over all over the world were like in the weirdest places seeing Kilroy was here. Well, back in World War I in Australia, there was a little character called Foo that looked similar to Kilroy, but then there was also another character in England called, a comic character called, it was called Mr. Chad. And I think it looks more like the Kilroy. And so somewhere along the way, somebody thought, well, let's add this character to Kilroy was here. And so that's why we have the Kilroy here was here meme, we will say. We might call it a meme since that's the cool thing now. So anyway, the soldiers would find him all over the world and in the weirdest places. And they knew if they saw Kilroy was here, they knew that their fellow servicemen had been there before them. And if not, they might put it there themselves. Now this kind of made Stalin and Hitler a little bit nervous. They saw this and they thought this was some big spy operation happening. So ha ha on them. But anyway, so the memorial is in between the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument. It's situated beautifully, if you ask me. That was the controversy of where it was going to be located. People thought it was going to destroy the view, but in my opinion, it totally enhances the view. Now, another cool thing is sometimes when we're at the memorial, we'll see an honor flight come in. And if you don't know what an honor flight is, that's when your local community brings in your veterans to Washington, D.C. to see their memorials. So it started out with World War II veterans, and now we're seeing Korean War and Vietnam War veterans coming to their memorials. So I always encourage my groups to go up and talk to them. You know, sometimes they want to tell you everything, and maybe they don't want to talk, but you know, those stories are being lost. So it's rewarding, especially when you've got students that can go up and maybe learn a thing or two from a real veteran that served in World War II. Now, the order of the states in the pavilion is kind of a military, formal military meeting style, whereas the gold wall, the Freedom Wall, represents the head of the meeting. And on the right, you'll have Delaware, which was the first state that was ratified, and then you have the second state would be Pennsylvania, and then each state in the order that it came into the Union, back and forth, back and forth. Now on the pillars, you'll see two wreaths, one on each side. The wreaths, one of them is an oak wreath, which represents our strength in industry. The other wreath is a wheat wreath, which represents our strength in agriculture. Now, as you enter into the memorial from the front, you have a wall full of different bas reliefs on both sides. And they're scenes depicting things that were happening during that time, things that we were doing on the home front, you know, like, you know, the women that were working in the factories, and then also things that were happening on the battlefront. There's two pavilions on each side, and one pavilion is the Atlantic Pavilion and one pavilion is the Pacific. So those represent both theaters of the war, the main theaters of the war that we fought. And there's the four pillars, and inside you'll see a wreath, and four eagles are holding up the wreath. And so the eagles and the four pillars represent the four branches of our military. So that's a nod to the Army, Marines, and Air Force, and Navy. And then each of the pillars is connected by a bronze rope, and that indicates our unity as a country coming together for the war effort. Now there's a lot of, this is a memorial that has a lot of symbolism in it, and you know, you can spend a lot of time, you know, wandering through this memorial. So anyway, that's a little information about the World War II Memorial, and it's situated, if you're like standing in the front entrance of it, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial on one side, and if you turn around, you'll see the Washington Monument with the Capitol in the back on the other side. I think it is situated perfectly, and beautiful location. So, well, that's the World War II for you. I hope you get a chance to go visit it. It's absolutely beautiful. And everybody have a great day. Thank you.